So here I am with Tiger Tom Pistone, a very legendary NASCAR driver. In fact, my first 500 is not only his first 500, but it's the first Daytona 500 ever in 1959. How you doing? Welcome.
Good.
All right. Glad you're here, and thank you so much for letting us use your shop here. You got in Charlotte, North Carolina. So tell me something. What is your very first Daytona 500 experience?
Well, the track was built in 1959, and it was a shock to most of us. When we first went down there, we went through the tunnel, and then we come into the racetrack, and we see this big bank, high bank on it, and we just couldn't believe it. Fred Lorenzen said that it looked like it was coming right to your face. That's how the bank looked like to you, and it was pretty fast, pretty fast.
Wow. What was what was to be expected? I mean, that was probably the largest track that had ever been built at that time for as far as circle track racing. What was kind of to be expected at that time? What kind of car did you race?
Well, nobody expected anything because we didn't even know what a draft was until we got on the racetrack. And we had a 59 T-Bird, and Holman and Moody built all these cars. And the T-Bird was a unit construction body, and you had to keep the windows closed to maintain the speed. So when we first got on the racetrack, it was a big shock. I mean, a big shock. Then all of a sudden, somebody's behind me pushing me. And I said, what's going on here? And it was Curtis Turner. And he's pushing me, and we're going through these cars like they were popcorn, passing them like there was nothing. And that's when we found out what a draft was. When you put two cars together, you run fast. So as soon as Curtis got away from me and went to the front, I would drop back and then start pushing him. And I mean, it was spectacular, very spectacular.
Wow. So I mean, do you think did everyone kind of find that out at the same time, or
no,
you and Curtis?
No. Well, when we first went out to practice, we had all the cars out there. It was about 15 or 20 cars, and all of a sudden, Lee Petty was in the back of the pack, and he drove right through the middle of all these cars. It was like a body slam, and we spun out. We actually spun out a bunch of cars, and because when he came through there, it broke all the wind up, and the cars started spinning around all over the place. And then NASCAR had a meeting, and that's when we started talking what's going on here. And like I said, that draft was something spectacular. Everybody was shocked, everybody, But once we learned the draft, we were okay,
Wow.
Then it became a good race.
So how long was the actual event? Was it a few days like it is now, or I mean?
Oh yeah, it was 2 weeks.
Oh, it was 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, back then it was 2 weeks. The first week you practice and you qualify, and then the second week you qualify again, and the second week is what counted. See, the first week I had the fastest time for the whole week, and Cotton Owens came in the second week and he beat my time, and he got the fastest time, but I had the fastest time for the whole solid week.
Wow.
I had, yeah.
So you started in the top 10 for the first 500?
Started third.
Wow.
Yeah, I started
top
third.
5. Not bad.
Yeah, I started third, and I led most of the race. And the problems we had back then is Firestone and Goodyear. I think it was only Firestone didn't know the setup on the tires, and the tires that we ran were only about 4 inches wide, and it had a lot of rubber on it, real thick rubber. So when we went out there and practiced, everything was fine because the speed was only 140, 139 miles an hour. But when the race started, the speeds were up to 145, 150 miles an hour. Then all of a sudden, we saw the hoods vibrating like crazy. The tires were coming apart at a certain speed. And we changed tires like crazy, everybody. But Lee Petty was the only one that caught on. He backed off 20 miles an hour and saved his tires. See, the critical point was 140 miles an hour, and the tires would stay on your car. And Lee Petty found that out.
Wow.
Yeah, Lee Petty, he was always sharp on that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So a lot of us guys were put out of the race on the tires.
Wow. So where did you actually finish the race?
I finished 6th.
Wow.
Finally, yeah, finished 6th.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I was rookie of the race. I won the rookie of the race. I won. But it's a very exciting race. During the race, this guy, Tommy Irwin, was driving a white T-Bird, and they got a lake, they call Lake Lloyd at Daytona. It's in the middle of the racetrack. And he went in there. Yeah, the car went in there, and I couldn't believe it, you know. And I come back around, and he's down there in the water. We couldn't even see him. So after we got out of the car, we all asked Tommy, "What happened, Tommy?" Because he stayed down there for a long time. He stayed down there, and we all got concerned about it. See, a T-bird is a unit construction body, and it seals up pretty good. So what saved him, the body was sealed. So what happened to him, in them days we had the windows were stock windows in them cars, you know, stock regulators, and the handle was gone. See, and Tommy was trying to find a handle to push the window down. So he's in the floorboard, under the water, in the floorboard, looking for this crank handle, and he finally found it, and he stuck it on there, rolled the window down, and he came out. And I told my mechanic, Mario Rossi, I'm scared of water. So I went down to Daytona, and I bought a life jacket, and I bought an aqua lung, and I bought the whole system. And I wore it for the whole race. I wore it. You know?
Well, I mean,
because I couldn't swim, you know.
Well, speaking of being in the cars, like they're not the way they are now. It really does cater to the driver. There's a lot of heat insulation in that. What was it like driving those cars at that time?
Well, you didn't know any better, you know. So you took it the way it was, you know. It was hot. It was hot. You couldn't touch the floorboard. That's how hot it was, because you had to leave the windows up. You had to, because you lose speed, you know. No, it was pretty bad, pretty bad. And a lot of guys fell out, kind of heat, a lot of guys.
Well, there was no power steering. And
Nothing.
The seats were stock.
No, we didn't have a shoulder harness, you know, back then. We didn't have no armrest, you know. We didn't know anything about that stuff like that there. And then in 1960, Fireball Roberts got smart, and he put a shoulder rest in his car, where you lean against it, you know. And I ran that for years and years and years. I ran that.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate that. We have a legendary driver, Tiger Tom Pistone. He's been racing for a really long time, and he actually raced in the very first Daytona 500 in 1959. And that is not only his first 500, but the first 500 ever. So now that you've heard the story from Tiger Tom Pistone, a legendary NASCAR driver, of his first Daytona 500 in 1959, we want to hear from you using the hashtag MyFirst500.